everyone, it's Dr. Rick. Today's unboxing is on something really simple. Airborne. Airborne is, well, you can find this at your local pharmacy and grocery store. There are a couple of cheap knockoffs too. I think they're all about the same, but it's important when you're having issues with vomiting, diarrhea, upset stomach, or you're getting over something like a gastroenteritis, or if you're fasting. Well, not fasting because this might change around your insulin response, but you can usually get something of a fizz tab or a powder. Oops. And this is how they look. They're dissolvable tablets that I try to put into a bottle of water. Because when you go through, say, diarrhea, where you're losing volumes of fluid. Now, the gut is trying to protect itself because it's usually being invaded by some bacteria, some parasite, or some virus. And when you have a gut that's functioning really well, and the gut is super protective. In fact, it's so good at protecting the body from invasion that people die of dehydration more than the invasion. So whether you're pooping a lot with diarrhea, liquid stools, or just water, or you're vomiting a lot, you're going to lose fluids, and fluids are essential. We're made up of mostly fluids. I'm doing this because when you put this in here, it fizzes and it actually bubbles, so you have to clear some of the fluid. I mean, this is I don't know where I got this, but this is cheap. So I like this because it measures out exactly what you're supposed to do per half hour to hour. I like patients that are a little upset with their stomachs, but a little on the verge of 5% dehydration, to try to put a little bit of fluid every 30 to 60 minutes for an entire day. So obviously you can see that it is fizzing, and there's a little bit of gas that's going to form, carbon dioxide, or maybe not carbon dioxide, but there's a little bit of gas that's going to form. And the cool thing with this is, if you are doing nothing but fluids for 24 hours, that's what I usually suggest. If you're having diarrhea or vomiting, upset stomach, then while I make sure that you don't have any big diseases with blood tests and stool tests, once I rule that out, then you're allowed to hold off from eating and take my medicines. Zofran is for vomiting, Lomotil is for diarrhea. You can buy Imodium over the counter and Pepcid over the counter, but my two other ones that I prescribe are big hits, and the Zofran knocks out, with very little side effects, knocks out the urge to vomit, as long as you don't force more irritation into your system. The Lomotil will paralyze the gut and stop diarrhea, but it usually gives you a constipation. So both of those are very important to stop the progression of dehydration. Because dehydration, when you get to like 5%, where your mouth is pasty and your skin is tinted and your heart's fast and you're a little dizzy and you're tired and fatigued, well, that can progress quickly. Just ask any hiker that's been on a mountaintop with hot weather and humidity is terrible. It'll get really weak and you'll hit the wall. I did it not during a hike, but during 2 marathons at the halfway mark, and I just felt terrible. So anyway, hydration is very important. Muscle cramping too can be prevented. So the objective again is to give flavor. So if you give flavor, it makes the fluid palatable. If I'm just going to say 24 hours, which is my usual rule of thumb, 24 hours of liquids only, no Coke, no sodas, no milk, no coffee bean, no caffeine. If I just say that for 24 hours, it's going to be tough to just take in a 12-ounce bottle of water, because even if it's cool, it's like boring. And most likely you're going to be sick and not going to be hungry, but it is boring and you just force the fluids down, tough. But if you have flavor, I think it changes around the dynamics of what you're thinking about this thing. And also, this has a ton of sodium. So there's a lot of other ingredients in Airborne. I can't read this, but maybe you can. No, it's too bright. There. So there's your ingredient label, and I'm not sure exactly what is it. Anyway, so the fizz part of this tab releases a lot of sodium. And I don't think sodium's a big bad guy like in the 90s, where we linked sodium to a lot of hypertension. I think it's valid. The DASH diet is valid, but in the advent of current keto practitioners, I think you push sodium. So I love the way the keto scientists will put out data. It's fresh data, and we'll see over the long haul how it helps with decreasing morbidity and mortality. But one of the great things of this data is that sodium is helpful, especially if you're fasting or you're changing around your fuel sources. So if you're having diarrhea and your intravascular volume, that's a volume that's floating around in your blood vessels, is decreased, that's what the body does in an attempt to save itself. Well, putting sodium in will increase the intravascular volume again and get your blood pressure up, slow down your heart rate, get more blood to your brain, get more blood to your muscles while you're in a semi-dehydrated state. 3% dehydration is not bad. But again, when you get to 5%, your urge for drinking and thirst is actually gone, and then you get dangerously even lower. So it's important to have a timed schedule. So I would probably just do a bottle at least every hour. And yeah, if you've divided it into 15-minute blocks, you can have 15 minutes, 15 minutes, 15 minutes, 15 minutes. So you have that much time to finish off. And when you do finish this off, you'll notice eventually, if you do it every hour, every worst case, every 2 hours, when you're starting to recover the hydration, your urine will be totally clear. And that's okay. That means that you've hit the right amount. Now, there are some risks for getting too much fluid in. It changes around sodium, but in the first 24 hours, in the first day, I don't think you're going to have that problem just by pushing this. Because here's the other rule I have. Once we rule out disease with blood testing and stool testing, then we give rescue, which is usually Zofran for mouth and vomiting and Lomotil for diarrhea. And then we give you fluids. Hopefully the fluids will not upset the stomach to the point where you vomit again through the use of Zofran. Once you do that for 24 hours, then your gut's ready for a BRAT diet: bananas, rice, applesauce, and toast. I know that's not appetizing, but it's a cool acronym, BRAT. And we used to use that in pediatrics whenever kids would have gastrointestinal issues. So it would just be the essential nutrients. The concept is that it's the essential nutrients: bananas, rice, applesauce, and toast. Easily digestible, carbohydrate hit for energy, especially if you're drained, and it doesn't upset the stomach too much. Some people say, oh, the bananas are great because they give you potassium. I don't think there's that much potassium. I think there's more potassium and sodium in this than you would get in bananas. And if you force too many bananas in for the second day, again, it's first day, fluids. None of the irritating fluids, just fluids, this. Or, I put this here because this is what I like, but this is like $2 a bottle. This is pennies. And Airborne, if you look at it, I think it's like $6. So you save a little bit of money. And how many do we have in here? We got a day's worth. You can put a fizz tab in each bottle, and that'll run you a whole day with one of these things. So that's a cheap date. So after the second 24 hours, if you tolerate a BRAT diet, still using the Zofran for vomit, still using a Lomotil for constipation, but usually a Lomotil will stop the pooping. If you pass the next day with using bananas, rice, applesauce, and toast, and I'm sure there are variations to that, but then you could advance off to soft foods, easy digestible foods, and test out your gut. The last thing you want to do is, after the second day, say, my gut is great, the Zofran's working, I'm not vomiting, I'm not having any diarrhea, I'm going to have a drink, or meaning alcohol. Or I'm going to have coffee again, meaning caffeine or coffee bean. Or I'm going to have the Golden Corral's buffet. You can't do that because even though I fool your brain into thinking no vomiting, no diarrhea with medicines, that's synthetic medicines to fool the brain, and even though you tolerated fluids, that lining of the gut and that lining of the colon is still raw. So don't be fooled. That's why you have to progress slowly. I usually say on the third day, be easy with what you take in. I would usually try to refeed with things that are not so complex, not so irritating, and definitely no dairy. I don't think dairy is a wise thing when you're irritated. Not so complex, a little more mushy than anything, but packed with nutrition. So eating candy on the third day, not a good idea. Having Coke on the third day, no, you don't need that kind of caffeine. Even caffeine on the third day, you're asking for trouble. So I would slowly advance. When you slowly advance, even if you have hunger, then you get the fuel in. You don't re-exacerbate the issues, because I've seen people on the third day dive into crap and they go exactly to where they were when we first started, vomiting, diarrhea, even through my medicines. And then at that point in time, when it's re-triggered, you're going to the emergency room for IV fluids. They might keep you overnight for full workup too, so you don't want to be doing that. There are some pellets that homeopathic doctors use, Nux Vomica. That sometimes helps because a pellet is essentially nothing. That's what the homeopathic pellets are. They're essentially diluted nothing. But the concept is cool, and I have a pellet video I did from before, so check it out. And with that, you can put under the tongue, crush it up, essentially not irritate the stomach, and get by with the effects of the Nux Vomica. And I'll spell that down below. So hopefully this gives you a little bit of an idea about why I suggest the fizz tabs of Airborne. You know what? This is 7 in the morning. I think I just broke my fast by having that sip. That's okay. So it tastes really sweet and salty, so it's a nice balance. Airborne is pretty decent. Again, I wouldn't use it for, I think there were some cheap studies saying the homeopathic elements in this don't really work to change, but I don't use it for that. I use it more for hydration. So hopefully you'll like the video. Check out the other ones down below. Don't forget to subscribe to me on YouTube for when I do new videos. Otherwise, I'll see you at the next unboxing.